Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Market Down Podcast, where everything's made up and the points don't matter. My name is Nick Cummings, joined this week by Danny Hernandez and Chad Big Bad Johnson, reviewing the latest episode of AEW Dynamite, which was sponsored by Game of Thrones, House of Dragons, I think. So if you actually followed along with our drinking game and drank every time they said dragon, shouts to you for actually making it to this live. We start with the main event, which is La Facción Ingobernable against the Young Bucks and their mystery partner, who they've pretty much telegraphed if you watched any sort of BTE and even just Dynamite. But so the Bucks came out, and as Justin Roberts was leaving the ring, Cutler stops him and gives him a piece of paper. But more importantly, before that, as the Bucks came out, Justin Roberts introduced them with introducing their opponents, which I like that touch. And then Taz said, I'm not going to give Brandon Cutler any respect, which was just great. But anyway, their partner was obviously a returning Kenny motherfucking Omega. He did the whole thing, including from North Carolina or whatever. And they threw in a Charleston Chew joke in there, so I wonder if that's going to stay. Kenny also returned with that rat bastard Don Callis and Nakazawa. Callis joined them on commentary. Kenny was very noticeably wrestling in a compression shirt and had a large brace on his left shoulder. So I don't know if that's something we're going to continue to see, but I guess it is. I think James said, and James was unable to be here tonight, but he mentioned that Kenny used to wrestle in shirts most of the time in Japan, but wouldn't surprise me if that was just for the shoulder brace. Anyway, onto the match. It started with Dragon Lee shaking Nick Jackson's hand and getting yelled at by his partners, who were Rush and Andrade. And for those of you who don't know, Dragon Lee is the brother of Rush. They actually had a match at the past Ring of Honor pay-per-view. So this was cool. Kenny getting in the ring was obviously great to see. A little rusty. He screwed up a "you can't escape," but he laughed it off. So he might have done that on purpose, honestly, knowing Kenny. But it was cool. And it was very obvious to me, at least, that Kenny and the Bucks were fighting this match face. Matt Jackson tends to only do the locomotive suplexes when he's a face. Kenny was really drawing the crowd in. It definitely didn't seem like the usual heel elite stuff that we tend to get. We got the Terminator clap back, but Dragon Lee ruined it. And then not only did he ruin it, he mocked it and then did an insane tope con hero through the ropes that Andrade was holding open onto Kenny, who was perched atop the barricade, which they had pulled in and went into the crowd, which is something I was not expecting to see Kenny take his first match back. That was a hell of a spot. And James called it last week. This Dragon Lee kid is good, man. I haven't seen him before. He was awesome. The kid has got skills. So towards the end of this match, Andrade hit Kenny with the hammerlock DDT, and Matt was able to break it up. Eventually, Kenny hit a V trigger onto Dragon Lee, struggled, but got him up for the one-winged angel, hit it. The Bucks hold off Rush and Andrade, and Kenny picks up the pinfall. Afterwards, Kenny and the Bucks were walking off. Rush held his brother's hand up, but then ended up pushing Dragon Lee into Andrade, who hit a hammerlock DDT and ripped his mask off. And it looked like Kenny and the Bucks were going to save him, but they ran out of time. So we don't really know what happened. I imagine AEW will get that up on YouTube or Twitter or whatever as soon as possible. So I would go check there once we're done to see how it actually ended. But I don't know who to go here first because you guys both hate Andrade. But Chad, I'm going to go to you first because I think you like this match as much as I do. It was great seeing Kenny back. I enjoy all three guys of the Faction, especially, Dragon Lee, like I said, the first time I see him, but he was really cool. And I think Rush and Andrade are very, very good in the ring, despite what you think of them outside of it. So I actually really, really love this match. And I think this was a great kickoff to the Trios tournament.
Okay, listen.
Here we go.
Yes, it is true. I dislike Andrade. Everyone knows it. However, he is good in the ring, and I think this match was really good. Kenny was sloppy, but I think when you look at how long he's been out and just how, I guess, great the return has been, we overlooked the wonkiness. It was fine. I think Dragon Lee was the highlight of this match for me. I didn't know who he was. I didn't want to know who he was. I didn't care because he was attached to Andrade, and then he shocked the shit out of me. So, with that being said, I give it a 4 out of 5 stars, just off the strength of the return. I'm glad to see Kenny back.
I'm almost curious to know how much of Kenny being rusty was him doing it on purpose. Like, clearly he was playing up his injuries when he got hit in the neck before commercial. He was playing that up. He played his knee up. Obviously, he was selling the hell out of that. But like I said, I'm almost curious if he screwed up the Weekend Escape on purpose. I'm almost curious to see, like, if he was, maybe an extra step slower than he would be now, even though I think he would be a step slow in general because he's rusty. But even if he took it a step further and made it look like he was rustier than he actually is,
right,
to play up the fact, because he is coming back from major surgeries and vertigo. Like, I can understand him wanting to exaggerate that even more.
Right.
So I'm curious to see if that ever, if that's the case, but I doubt they'll ever tell us, at least in the near future. Danny, we're like we said, you obviously don't like Andrade either, so I think you're going to be a little more down on this match than me and Chad are.
First of all, why are we starting with this match? Second of all,
I don't know. It was a real toss-up between the opening segment and this one, but I figured we can at least go in our usual order if we start here.
Yeah. So now what are we going to end with? Penelope Ford match? But anyway, second of all,
yeah,
I disagree. I don't think that insane spot was insane for Kenny to take. All Kenny did was sit down and then sit back. That was probably one of the safest spots you could take. That spot was dangerous for Dragon Lee, who I think landed on the lap of a girl in the front row who couldn't move for a while.
He went
because
flying.
It was amazing.
She was standing up with nowhere to go. She couldn't move because his body was there, and then whoever was on the right of him was there. She was trapped for a bit. But third of all, Chad, are you wearing a Hobo Johnson t-shirt?
Yes, sir. Hojo.
Hobo Johnson, nice.
Do better, Danny.
Howard Johnson?
No, Hobo Johnson. He's an incel rapper. He's fine. He's a guy. But
I hate you both so much.
Shirt? You don't have a market down shirt? What the hell?
Soon come.
All right, fair enough.
I was shooting at ProWrestlingTees.com, maybe.
Fourth of all, I guess if that's what I'm up to, Kenny coming back is cool and all, but this is no Dexter Loomis return, obviously. This is no Carrion Charlottesville Cross return, and Charlottesville spelled with a K for his sake in this instance. But I could believe that some of it was him playing up, him being injured, because of course that's what you got to do. Brian did it when he returned. That's part of why he lost his match against Daniel Garcia, and Kenny was doing the same thing. I don't think him falling on the "there's no escape" was part of it. I think that was just genuine, because that reaction felt too genuine. That wasn't like a professional wrestler reaction. That was just a human being reaction to, an understandable slip up.
I don't think he did it on purpose, but it would be crazy if he did. But him laughing it off like that, and the Bucks looking at him like, "Are you okay?" and then seeing him laughing with him, it was probably real.
Yeah. Because they didn't ham it up; they just genuinely had a chuckle about it.
Whereas, he bounced on his ass across the ring into the corner.
I guess we will see when Being the Elite comes out and they have Cutler's footage of the incident. If they're mouthing off about it a lot, then maybe it was on purpose. But the return was cool. I actually missed the entrance because my feed cut out because of the 5-minute thunderstorm we had in the Bronx. That is gone now from what I can see on my window. So yeah, I actually missed his entrance. I didn't get to hear the pop, but I heard it was weird. And as from the way you described it, it sounds a little weird. But Kenny being back is great. I don't love his return match being against a bunch of nobodies, but that's fine. Like that's not that big a deal, you know. Like that's.
The pop wasn't as good as you'd expect.
I think it's
I do
because of the
admit
way
that.
they formatted it. I think I didn't see it, so I can't critique it too much. But
I thought it was
just
fine. It was just extended because
Yeah.
Kenny came back again with the long intro and the North Carolina and everything, you know. So people like popped and then had to wait for Justin Roberts to finish, and then he came out and they popped again. So it was
yeah.
it wasn't it was I get it was perhaps a bit awkward, but it wasn't any, you know, less quiet than I would expect it to be if they just hit his music.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I didn't see it, so I can't.
Pretty more quiet, rather.
I can't fully comment on that, but just seeing him back is great. I don't know what else is there to say. It's Kenny Omega. It's almost like you immediately look past this. You're ready to start mouth watering about what could be. Like we were talking about Punk. You know, there's always going to be that. I mean, I still want to see a conclusion to him versus Bryan Danielson, but there's just so much that can be done. There's so much to be excited about. So, honestly, tonight almost didn't matter. The match didn't matter. The match could have been terrible. Doesn't matter. The point is Kenny is back, and that's exciting, and the future is exciting, and what he's going to do next is exciting. And, it'll be nice to hear him and the Bucks talk about the hangman of it all and how things were left off. And, Adam Cole and the very disputed Elite, there's a lot of plates spinning that, again, this match did not matter at all because in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing compared to what they have in the very, very near future,
True.
Yeah, and in regards to that future, I do think they're probably going to hold off on a lot of those singles matches you mentioned just till Kenny really has his feet back under him. I think that's why they are bringing him back for the trios tournament because, he doesn't have to wrestle a full match. He's got the Bucks there with him, to protect him somewhat while he works his way back and sees how his body feels. Maybe, it might take 8 months before we really get Kenny in singles matches again. And after this tournament, I don't really see them wrestling, unless they win. But even then, I don't see them wrestling more than twice a month, just to protect Kenny as much as possible. Because
and the Bucks, they don't wrestle a lot either. They're all
same
banged up, and they all have to wrestle a lighter schedule, and that's totally fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean that New Japan loop they're running back in the early days of BT was insane. They were going insanely hard between that and then the Bucks would be back on the road 2 days later for Ring of Honor. It was shooting down to Mexico. They put a lot of miles on their bodies, those 5 years or so. So yeah, it's catching up a bit, but luckily they're on a roster now where despite the fact they are so high profile, they don't have to be wrestling every week. So I think that they'll be fine. All right. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, I did mention it earlier, they were fighting a face style. Do we think that they're coming back face? At the Kenny and the Bucks, do you think they're going to remain that way?
It's going to be weird because with the Bucks, we've watched them turn face slowly, or at least start to at least have some babyface tendencies and head that way, whereas we haven't seen that with Kenny. Kenny left an out-and-out heel. He left as a wacky mad scientist kind of dick with Don Callis, and he hasn't done anything besides return that's babyface like, because returning always kind of makes you a babyface. So it's weird with Kenny. I feel like more needs to be done for Kenny besides just coming back.
I feel like if we just got maybe 3 more minutes of the end of the show, then we would see that Kenny has returned and it's at least projecting and going into facedom. Because if you see, they were going to help Dragon Lee.
They looked more like they were confused about it, like what's going on.
We were the confused ones.
That doesn't feel earned either, because that's who cares. Again, in all honesty, not to shit on Andrade and friends, but like, who cares about?
No,
like, that's
always
not,
shit on
you
Andrade
don't
and
turn
friends.
face by saving like jabronis. Like,
I was actually curious to see whether or not, Death Triangle came out for the save. I know they're kind of going to be feuding with
oh god,
with Will Ospreay and them next week. They have that match, but they still hate Andrade. It wouldn't shock me if they make that save either. But I don't. Obviously, we don't know because they fucking ran out of time.
people I'd like to never see interact again.
Andrade
500
and
Alex.
Death Triangle, yeah. Just I don't know. I think Chad's right. Like, they're working their way up to them being face.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
Don is still a piece of Kenny from his, heelish, from him being a heel, because Don is just a rat bastard. That's what he is. And
Indeed.
yeah, and Nakazawa, he can, he's fine. He's just there. But I think we'll get there. I think obviously we're going to get not a lot, but we'll get some Kenny Hangman stuff in the next couple of weeks, whether or not that's on BTE or on Dynamite or both, probably both. And it'll be really cool. But I think you're right, Danny. When you come back, you usually tend to come back face. I don't think the fans want to boo a returning Kenny Omega because it's a small miracle that he's even back.
Right.
So it's going to be really difficult to keep him heel in general. I mean, he was getting face pops even when he was heel. So, him coming back in this way, I just don't see them doing it. And the Bucks have obviously made strides between them getting their ass kicked by Adam Cole and Red Dragon, and then apologizing to Hangman. They've made strides to being face as well. So I think we do get a face elite, and I'm excited to see what ends up happening here. I do hope they win the belts, but we'll see. And whoever the side of the bracket they're on, I think they get the winners of Death Triangle and Will Ospreay and Aussie Open.
I don't think I want them to win the belts. However, yeah, I don't want them to win. That's all.
That's fair.
Best friends all day.
Yeah, I'm here for best friends too. But honestly, if they get them versus that triangle will be cool, because you have the Pac Kenny history, and obviously Lucha Bros and the Bucks always put on good matches. Them versus Ospreay and Aussie Open, that is a tantalizing matchup, because Kenny and Ospreay have been going at it on Twitter.
No,
Yeah.
the finals should be
That's a
Best
semi
Friends versus Death Triangle, and Cassidy and Pac can reignite the best match in AEW history before Orange Cassidy Will Ospreay.
I just want to hop in the chat because James is apparently in the chat. He said that he thinks Kenny is better than we think. He thinks that Kenny may have gotten a little gas, but he's not as hurt as he's indicating. It was probably a work, which I think we all agree with. Also, he said Dragon Lee ain't no jabroni, but he might have gotten concussed. Honestly, I could see that. Kenny was a little off with some of those dragon suplexes. He was getting real close to dropping dudes on his head.
Also, it seems like his mask coming off at the end was an accident. That didn't seem on purpose. That actually felt like it slipped off.
Andrade ripped it open, and then I thought he was just going to rip it off, but then Roosh stood him up and held his hand up and then pushed him back into Andrade, and it came off on the DDT. So I thought Andrade was taking his mask off at some point. I just sure if he fucked the order up or what, but that mask was meant to come off at some point in that post-match shenanigans. So we'll see. Like I said, we got to check back in on AEW stuff, and hopefully they post hands, because I'm really upset that I got cut off like the one time.
Right.
They actually don't run over.
And I hope he's not concussed, because this was his fucking match, his moment. I mean, it was really about Kenny, but like I said, I think Dragon Lee shined the most tonight.
Yeah, real coming out party for him, for those of us who hadn't seen him before, especially to the more casual Dynamite fan.
Right.
Whereas I know, like James said, he ain't no jabroni, and he was on the last Ring of Honor pay-per-view. So I'm glad I got to see him. I didn't get to see that Ring of Honor pay-per-view. I heard he was very good in it when he faced Roosh, but this dude's got skills, like I said. So hopefully we see him more, but who knows? All right, let's move on to the other major news coming out of this episode, which was the opening promo of the match. CM Punk came out just absolutely firing. Yes, he had the title. There are, in fact, 2 titles, which I thought we all expected, but considering he didn't have it last week, just wanted to put it out there. First thing he did was call out Hangman for rematch since they were in West Virginia and Hangman is from there. But Hangman doesn't come out, and Punk called it coward shit instead of cowboy shit, which is interesting. He then immediately called out Moxley for obvious reasons and just absolutely destroyed Moxley for a minute. Said he's the 3rd best guy in his group, which seems to be a recurring theme throughout his career. He then went after Eddie and said that Eddie Kingston was the 3rd best Eddie he's ever faced in the ring and the 2nd best Kingston he's ever shared a locker room with. And then he said Mox will be the 2nd best John he's ever beat for a title in Chicago. At this point, Moxley's already on his way out. And Punk is doing snow angels in the middle of the ring while he's waiting for Moxley to get there. Mox comes out, and he more than held his own, but he just wasn't dropping the missiles that Punk was. But Mox said that Punk was living in a fantasy world and that both belts don't mean shit until he beats Punk. The promo ends with Mox eventually just trying to goad Punk into fighting him. He does, and Punk pushes Moxley. Moxley kissed him and then just slapped him across the face with a right, which then leads to an all-out brawl. Security comes, and we have a pretty lengthy pull-apart. But holy shit, Danny, there was just absolute, well, just to say it, CM Punk dropping pipe bombs again. There's absolute fire from both of these guys to start the show.
I was genuinely racking my brain trying to think of borderline poetic ways to articulate just how great this was and how excited and hyped it got me. But I have nothing that'll do it justice anyway. This was fucking awesome. I loved every second of it. And like, if I can calm down about it, I can explain why, but I just can't because I'm just so, this was so good. I'm so pumped from this. I wish All Out was 8 weeks away instead of like 3. Like, I want more of this. I want so much more of this. This was fantastic. How often does Dynamite start with a promo segment? That's how you already know this is special because that is a rare occurrence. What, when
usually
MJF
when
drops the pipe bomb?
I was gonna say usually when CM Punk comes out or MJF.
Yeah. So this was special right off the bat. And Jimothy in our chat put it very well. Punk loves playing the heelish babyface, and he did. He kept saying, "Hey, let me know when I'm telling a lie." And you know, then he went on to say some very subjective things, so it's hard to really say you're lying about a lot of opinion-based things. Like, how can we really say that Eddie's like the best Kingston you've shared a locker room with when that's subjective, you know? So, you know, you really put us in a pickle there, Punk. That's a little unfair of you, but that was so good. Like, just shitting on people that had nothing to do with that. I love that. That's a fantastic thing. But yeah, so that's a seed for, you know, facing Eddie again, facing Hangman again, who, like, why was he involved in this promo at all? Like, that was Punk healing it up to immediately win the crowd back. He was like, I'm going to get you guys to turn on me, and then immediately turn back so quickly because he just called out Hangman, borderline knowing he's not there. So that's a heel move, but he did it in a badass way. And then he goes on and he is firing bullets at everyone. He is not holding back. And there's no Colt Cabana, how you doing? You know, there's no insane, overly quotable line. It's just all jab after jab after jab. And then it's like, how's he going to do this? Plus, look, I mean, doing Snow Angels, fantastic. Acknowledging the length of Mox's entrance, great stuff.
He sang Wild Thing.
Sarcastic. Yes.
He did.
He did. It's almost like he knew the camera went off of him because as soon as the camera went off him, he stopped singing it. But it's almost like he was on Zoom and was like, "Oh, I'm talking, so the camera's on me," and then he stopped and like, it's not on me anymore. But it was just a perfect return promo. It's not what I expect. I expected him to be a lot more respectful to Moxley, considering the last time he even spoke of Moxley, it was when Moxley left to go to rehab, and he was very respectful about it. But that was a different time, and those were two different people, clearly, because they held nothing back. And yeah, Moxley was fantastic rebuttal. It wasn't I'm going to one up your rebuttal. It was just a perfect, I'm going to undermine what you said rebuttal, as opposed to he's not going to try to outbomb him in this scenario. Like, Punk struck first, and all Moxley could do was put his hands up, and he put his fucking hands up about it.
And got a couple good counter rights in there too.
Yeah.
The way he ended off too, he's like, I don't think you're going to do shit. Like, that's, I hate to always, make everything about locations, but that was some Bronx shit right there, right? Like, it was, I don't think you're going to do shit. Like, he's been hanging out with Eddie Kingston too much. He's a bad influence. But that was great stuff. The brawl was great. And like, I know you're very good and detailed with your notes, and you have everything chronological, but we should just right now address the later on when Jon Moxley comes fucking barreling back out, fucking falls over because he's so amped up and doesn't do a great job playing it off, but it's all forgotten when he gets in the ring and calls out Punk again, because that's some chaotic shit that honestly AEW doesn't always do. Like, it's not often that things come back up later in the show. It's usually one and done. When you're done, you're done. Your segment's done, and that's it. So this felt a little more like lively, felt a little more chaotic. Things felt like they were breathing more, and it was just a borderline perfect. Like, I'm only saying borderline perfect because like I can't actually think of a criticism of it, but I just don't want to be hyperbolic and canonize it. But it was. Have they had a better segment like this year? Have they done a better segment? The MJF.
Him and MJF, but
or just specifically MJF's. I was a little Jew boy promo. That was the best promo.
That was good.
Best segment of the year. But
I was gonna say MJF, calling Tony Khan out was pretty good too. But
that's good too. I just have until we get resolution. I my feelings are weird about that, where it's like when he comes back, I'll be like, okay, that was like the best thing of the year. But if he doesn't come back, I'll be like that was bad. But gotta give a quick year to John Blattner for joining us. But yeah, just A++. That was so good. It raises everything else up on a curve. Like, it made Jungle Boy's promo better. That's how good this was.
And all right, just to recap, Chad, before I go to you, just to recap what Danny was talking about, the segment when Moxley came back in, Tony Nese actually started that segment. I don't know if he had a quote-unquote scheduled match or what he was supposed to do, but him and Smart Mark came out, and then Moxley comes storming out, just kicks both of their asses, runs into the ring, grabs a mic. He said he's been waiting too long for this shit and challenged Punk to a match right there and then. Punk comes out basically to accept, but security gets between them. They have another pull apart, and Claudio and Euler come out to hold Moxley back and to try to calm him down, to the point where Claudio, and I like they mentioned on commentary that Claudio was the only one strong enough to actually lift Moxley and physically drag him away from everyone. So I do have to agree with you, Danny. That is one thing I wish AEW did a little more, was have like a thread throughout the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And WWE at times does that very, very well. I think
lately, mainly.
Yeah, definitely
I think
lately.
It's coming back a bit more with the Triple H era and stuff. Like they did it with Dexter Lumis a few weeks ago.
I tried really hard to not bring up WWE in that because I was like, I don't want to.
No, I know.
But you barely do it, so it's okay when you do it.
Yeah, I know. Like, we don't like comparing the two companies too much to each other, but it's just something I like in in wrestling shows. And for AEW, they only really tend to do it where you'll get like a backstage interview with Shivani, either before or after a match, to set something up or following up something. But it's not really something, like you said, that'll come back around later in the show. Hell, I was expecting them to do it one more time, to be honest with you, or go to Moxley in the street or something, like just breaking everything while Claudio and Wheeler try to calm him down. I was expecting almost something like that, just one more segment, but it was nice to see them bring it back up.
Right.
So, Chad, I will now go to you then. What did you think of both of these segments, both the original pull apart, the pipe bombs, the haymakers, and then the secondary pull apart?
Oh my God. I'm with you. They could have did this the whole night. They could have did it at 8, 8:30, 9, 9:30, and then 9:58 if they wanted to. Like, I was so enthralled. I think this wasn't even a match, but this was match of the night. Still. This was the best shit.
Segment of the night.
Yeah, this was the best shit that has happened in a while for me. For people who are unfamiliar with CM Punk, or for people who teeter-totter and don't love him, I think this was the perfect segment to watch and now begin loving him. I think he was firing on all cylinders. I mean, Mox is always going to deliver a good promo. He's always going to have good rebuttals. He's always going to get in your face. We know that. But I just think, like Danny said, this was special. Like, it was chef's kiss. I can't even, I'm so speechless to the point that this segment was like untouchably great. Like, it was just great. I don't think anything could have brought this down from how high it is. It's on a pedestal now for the rest of the year. This was one of the best promos I've seen in a long time.
I think to what you were saying, I don't think it's a good showing for like someone who didn't know Punk or what Punk was about. I think it was a good showing for the people who have been doubting Punk and thinking he doesn't have it anymore, or thinking why is he so special, or thinking he's overrated. Bro, like, whoever your favorite is, they're not cutting a promo like that unless your favorite's like MJF. But then,
already
that's a whole other thing. But that's what this was. This was like, he's coming back swinging for the fences, and probably fucking
absolutely.
Like Brett Beatty in his first at bat, he had a fucking home run. But yeah, I will say that
his first swing.
Yeah, Jimothy brings up an interesting point in our chat. MJF may be the reason that this is happening next week and not at All Out, because they did announce this match is happening next fucking week. What the hell? Bro,
because they can't keep their hands off each other. Oh, this shit was great. Like, great. To the point where I don't care that the match is next week because I'm so invested now.
I care because
but yes,
I'm not ready.
It's crazy it's next week. Yeah, like, I'm not ready for it either. I want more.
I'm also not ready.
3 weeks to All Out, and now we're getting it next week. It's pretty crazy. And like James said, there's got to be a reason why. Because everyone was expecting this at All Out, and now that they're doing it next week, there's a whole lot of options as to why. Could it be MJF? Yeah. I don't know. They could do Hangman maybe, but that doesn't seem right. Like, that doesn't seem big enough to bump, the title unification bout from All Out to next week in Cleveland. Like,
and then silly me, I thought Punk was just gonna promo for a few weeks until the pay-per-view, because I didn't, I'm always scared when somebody comes back from injury, so I didn't think he was like cleared. And then for them to fight in the ring, I was like, okay, well, then he must be cleared.
Commentary didn't know if he was cleared.
Then the fucking match next week, I'm like, oh, okay, so he's certified cleared.
Yeah, it's, who knows, man. It is absolutely shocking that they're doing this next week. To the point where I've completely lost my train of thought now that Danny's brought it up.
I will also say, though, the only, I guess, down, which is not CM Punk and Mox's fault, I do not necessarily love how we promote pay-per-views on AEW. I will say that.
That's a fair
criticism. I think they do it like just a week before, besides the little box at the bottom that says coming soon. Other than that, I think they could work on just organizing it a bit more. That's all.
I think they've actually gotten worse at it, because they used to be all pay-per-view build for like 6 weeks out from the pay-per-view, but now they're so fucking hell-bent on these every fucking week TV specials with stupid names that they've gotten so bad at promoting pay-per-views, where it's like, and I don't remember if it was Rev or James last week that said, oh, I think they're, they they're doing so many TV specials because they need more space on the pay-per-views for the for the matches they want to put on pay-per-views. So now they put these matches on TV, but it's like I don't know. I guess I don't want longer pay-per-views because pay-per-views are already too long as it is. But like these specials aren't even helping because the pay-per-views are so long, and I don't know. Like, but that's not a criticism of this segment. It ties in because they're doing the match next week,
right?
But, like it doesn't make this segment less amazing. It's just a structural issue that
it's an AEW thing, not a segment thing. Yeah.
Next week's not even a special episode either. It's just a random episode in Cleveland. But that's what I don't understand. When they were first doing these themed episodes, it was usually about the midway point between pay-per-view. So it was kind of, okay, 6 weeks of build and then a bunch of blow-off matches at our themed pay-per-view, our themed Dynamite, and then 6 weeks of build to the pay-per-view. And then they would repeat. And the only time it didn't really happen is they always had Fyter Fest really close to Fight for the Fallen.
And
those
now
back-to-back weeks.
Every week is a Grand Slam.
Yeah, and Fyter Fest wasn't even really. It was a big show, but it was more just a bunch of like showcase matches because they were trying to raise money for charity. There wasn't necessarily a whole bunch of blow-off matches or whatever. Now we've gotten 3 and 4 weeks or 4 and 5 or something because we had 2 weeks of Fyter Fest and one the second week was the Shark Week one, and then we had Fight for the Fallen, and now we have Game of Thrones. It's like
Quake by the Lake.
Quake by the Lake was last week.
An atrocious name. That's unforgivable. It
might even be 5 and 6 weeks. It's like, okay, we're kind of, it's just kind of a bit of overkill. Winter is Coming was a good one. Fight for the Fallen, Fyter Fest. But, if you want to do 4 a year or 5, you want to, keep Fyter Fest and Fight for the Fallen right next to each other, fine. And Grand Slam is obviously going to be one of them every year, because that's going to be probably their biggest non-pay-per-view show every year.
And,
but I mean,
to be fair, we deserve that.
I'll tell you,
it is insane. This is the only time where we're not given special treatment for being in New York. It's so weird.
Yeah, we have to go all the way out to Queens. I'll tell you what, though, if the freaking whoever runs that, I guess it's the USTA, if they don't get their shit together with the lines this year, I don't care if they never have it again. But it was bad, dude. The one last thing I want to talk about with this promo before we move on is I did like that commentary brought up the fact that they were getting a bit more of a surly Punk than we had been in AEW, because the summer of Punk ended before it even got started, which I thought was a good point. He felt a lot more heel summer of Punk, calling everybody out no matter what Punk than he had been. Like he was calling people out, but he was only calling people out who were fighting him or disrespecting him. This one, he came out and was just, spray and pray on everybody. And I think that's a good point. I think his character is probably pretty pissed off that he didn't get his time in the sun. He didn't get his championship reign over the summer of Punk 2.0.
Yep.
And, they crowned a new champion. And I don't want to say people forgot him, but the company had to move on, and they did. And now he's back, and he's pissed that they did to an extent. So,
agreed.
I like that. So hopefully they continue to lean into that. And hell, maybe it leads to heel Punk. We'll see. All right, let's move on because we do have a lot of shows left to get to. Just a little bit of breathing room. We had a Powerhouse Hobbs backstage interview segment where he explained why he turned on Ricky Starks, which is basically that Starks was okay with losing, and he doesn't lose. In fact, he was paid to make sure Starks didn't lose, and when Starks started to, there was no reason for him to be there. And then he also said he's got something for the factory as well. And then we move on to a really, really good match, which was Bryan Danielson versus Daniel Garcia in a 2 out of 3 falls match. And I guarantee I fuck up Bryan Danielson because there's 2 Daniels in this match. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was there because the whole House of Dragon thing, but it was good to see him. He was a special guest timekeeper. Jericho was obviously on commentary. The first fall, very long, very technical, hard hitting, very much what we expect from these two guys. A lot of what we saw was that last 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, between them was very similar. It ended with Garcia getting Danielson to pass out into the Dragon Sleeper, and he picks up the first fall. Then they ended up going to commercial after Danielson's barely able to get to his feet when the match restarted. During commercial break, Daniel Garcia actually DDT Danielson into the concrete on the floor, which busted up Brian. So already BCC match, blood, duh. Then, so for the second fall, Garcia was going for the Dragon Sleeper again, but Danielson was able to shift his weight, pin Garcia, and for a nice little sneaky pin, and now it's 1-1. Eventually, during the third fall of the match, Garcia hit a psycho knee, but Danielson was able to kick out. And the match ended with Danielson basically just kicking Garcia's head in for like 5 straight minutes, it felt like, between kicks and elbow strikes, and just, I don't know how the kid didn't actually get knocked out. I mean, it was just elbow after elbow after elbow after elbow after elbow, and Garcia countered some of it, but eventually he was just too weak to fight back. Danielson gets a lapel lock in, and Garcia ends up submitting. Danielson gets the win. Afterwards, Danielson starts showing Garcia some respect, and when Garcia goes to shake his hand, Jericho jumps Brian from behind. Garcia then spins Jericho around and tells him to stop. Jericho gets in his face. Garcia slaps his hand away. The crowd very aptly starts chanting, "You're a wrestler," at Daniel Garcia, which was great. And Jericho storms off while Garcia seems very confused as what to do. So, Danny, I'll go to you first. This was a really good match. Obviously, I thought another good, hard-hitting technical match from these two guys. And it felt like a real star-making vehicle from Garcia here.
So I need to preface this with the fact that I am a huge Daniel Bryanson fan. And I am very, very biased. There are a handful of people that I've become such a big fan of over the years that I just don't care. I still get worked a little bit, and I get upset when they don't win. I still have that there's only a handful of people that I care enough about to feel that way, and Brian is one of those few people. So I hated when he lost to Garcia a couple weeks ago. That did not sit well with me.
I did too. I found it odd that it even happened. I understood they protected him with Hager cheating, but it's still, I did like, the mark in me hated the fact that happened. Yeah. But it led to this, which I thought was great.
Well, you see, the mark in me still.
He didn't have to lose for it to get to this, but yes, I understand.
No, and that's the thing. Actually, I think the thing that should have never happened in all of this is the Wheeler Yuta Daniel Garcia match from whatever the ROH show was, Death Before Dishonor.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was Death Before Dishonor.
Garcia would look a lot. Some of this would be easier to swallow. He would look a lot better, and he would seem a lot tougher if he didn't lose to Yuta, who is great and we love because we're not Eric. But it seems weird that Yuta can beat Garcia just fine, but Brian couldn't, and even here couldn't beat him. He lost. I don't like when baby faces lose the first fall in a 2 out of 3 falls match, especially.
I swear to God, that was in my review. But continue.
Occasionally, I don't mind it if it's a DQ. I think that happened in one of Pac's matches, at the very beginning of AEW. He just came out, and I forget who he was facing.
It was against Kenny.
Was it Kenny? And he just rocked him with a chair, and that's how the match started. That makes a lot of sense there.
But technically, that's Kenny, the babyface, winning the first fall because.
That's true. Yeah, my
bad. But
backwards.
I don't like the babyface losing the first fall clean. It makes them look bad because then they would have lost if it was a regular match. They lose right there. And then Brian wins the second fall with a roll up, which is weird. And that's a whole nother problem with I love 2 out of 3 falls matches, but the second fall is always the hardest part of the match to get into because you just know whoever didn't get the first fall is going to get the second fall.
Right.
Once in a while, that won't happen. I know Cesaro won a 2 out of 3 falls match in 2 falls, which is the most refreshing thing I've ever seen.
Need a couple more mini sweeps.
You got to. Yeah, I agree. You got to do that more, but so you got to wait the whole second fall. do you do it right away and then what's the point, or do you drag it out and it's like, well, all that time was pointless because you just know it's going to a third fall. But like the fact that Brian just had to win by rule, like, and that's again, that by design, that works in what they were trying to accomplish. They made you look fucking amazing. Like Brian was barely able to squeak that out because he was beat up so badly. He was groggy, and no one does glazed eyes better than Brian.
Which still makes me nervous.
Every single time.
I genuinely believe he works the announcers too, where they believe it too, where they're like, I've seen this guy retire like 2 times. Like, you know,
right. Take it easy.
Like, you know, especially JR, who's just like, I don't understand why any of these guys are still putting their bodies through this. But so no one's better than Brian. But it's like, the mark in me, you know, was fucking worked by that. And I don't like seeing Brian. I just feel like he's been so watered down. And like if you're looking at kayfabe as like power levels or something, since, you know, rankings and stats and shit, you know, it's almost like Brian went from beating every single person with a different move to none of his moves being effective enough to put someone away. And that bothers me. And that's an AEW problem more so than anything. But, you know, like you have
6 moves, you don't have 1.
Fucking the way everything they were trying to do works, and they nailed it, and they hit it. They did everything perfectly. That if you don't view Garcia as somewhat of a star now, that's on you. Sorry, Eric. And you know what? Sorry me, because I have mixed feelings about it still too. But like they did everything right. I just don't like that it's always Brian doing everything right. I wish other people would do things right, you know, and it wouldn't always have to be fucking Brian. But again, that's because I'm biased. I'm a Mark and I'm a fanboy for Brian.
You're letting your feelings cloud your judgment, Anakin.
Live long and prosper, Star Trek. I get you, man, totally. But you son of a bitch, I'm in. I feel like we're all making the same references here. But the match itself was amazing, fantastic stuff. Nothing was bad about this match besides, you know, my own personal pet peeve and biases aside, you know. But in terms of the actual in-ring wrestling, phenomenal. Every counter that not just like, oh, look how smooth and choreographed this is. These counters are like, we are brawling, we are grappling, and I happen to get the better of you in this instant. This was sloppy when it needed to be sloppy, and it was clean when it needed to be clean. And oh man, like I said, just Brian's so good at selling. He's so good. He's like, Brian's the best wrestler in the world. Orange Cassidy is obviously second, and like Will Ospreay or Kenny can fight for third or whatever they're going for. But like, and then Shane McMahon's obviously fourth. But you know,
oh god,
this was
solid callback.
Perfect in terms of in-ring work. It just, there was nothing they could have done better. The fact that Garcia hit the Psycho knee, and before that hit the drop kick in the corner, which the announcers didn't play up as much as they should have, because that led directly to the Psycho knee, which, you know, they made a whole meal out of. So they could have had the appetizer first and then made a meal out of the knee. But
hell, that was just the first course too. Garcia did the stomps later too.
Yeah. Oh my god, some of his counters to the stomps. Oh my god, like the way they brought in the same fucking stomps into the match so many times and had so many different counters and transitions out of them to fucking avoid doing them. Oh, it's just amazing stuff.
The counter for the first fall when he lifted Brian up into the pile driver and then ended up putting in the Dragon Sleeper, that was sick. And then they did it again later in the match, and Brian was able to counter it back. Like, great.
And the way he lifted him too was like such a unnatural way to lift someone in wrestling. You don't see people like, he was like almost like in the surfboard position, but he was being held up in the air, and it was just borderline.
I was nervous. I'm not gonna lie. I was nervous.
Dude, so much of this, you know, Daniel Garcia is a great wrestler, but he's not the biggest dude. And some of the ways he's holding Brian, I'm like, this guy is one bad fall away from not being able to do this anymore. Like, you gotta be careful. But I can go on and on about this. Like I said, I have so many mixed feelings in me. The Mark in me, the Brian Mark in me hates the first fall of this, and I'll stand by that. Even like bias aside, I think that's the wrong way to go about it. But the "You're a Wrestler" chants, man, that hit home. Like, that was a great moment. Kudos to the crowd. Like, crowds still make wrestling. Every once in a while, we have moments like this where it's like, yeah, we do make this better. Sometimes we fuck shit up, like giving what chance to Jungle Boy because he held the mic a little bit too far for the first few lines of his promo.
I hated
you know,
that.
like that.
It was
Sometimes
bad,
we're
though.
the assholes, but like, speaking of Brian, the very first "You Deserve It" chants were for Daniel Bryan after WrestleMania 30, and that was emotional, man. That shit got to me. That was one of the heaviest I've ever felt from like just a moment in wrestling, like a segment of promo. It's like we can make magic, and doing that for Garcia is gonna be what I remember more so than him standing up to Jericho. It's gonna be the way the crowd reacted to it. I can keep going, but you gotta stop me. You gotta go to Chad.
I was gonna say, yeah, you definitely could. Chad, do you even have anything else to say? I think Danny literally said everything that we could have.
He literally said probably everything I was gonna say. I'm not as obsessed with Brian as he is. However, how can he? I mean, it's almost not debatable. He is clearly the best wrestler in the world. Like, love him, hate him, like him, obsessed with him, regardless. He's probably the best to ever do it. My only down was the same as Danny's. I thought in my mind, I didn't know if it was bias or if it was favoritism or WWE brain, but I said, why the fuck would he not get the first and the third fall? It pissed me off because I hate when the heel gets the first fall and then the face has to get the following two. I don't know why. It does something to me as well. So I agree with Danny when he said that. Other than that, I mean, fuck. I don't think Daniel Garcia ever in his career has a better match than this unless he fights Bryan Danielson again. This shit was off the Richter scale for me. Like, this was hard hitting. It was tantalizing. I was anxious. I was panicking. The whole, like, everything. Brian sells incredibly well to the point where I get scared every time I see him take any bump, probably for the rest of his career now. I'm just super nervous. Like, other than that, I mean, this shit was good. It was really good. And how old is Garcia?
He's young, man. If he's 26, that's old. I think he might be a bit younger than that. I'm guessing.
Yo, this was definitely a shining moment and just a testament that he's gonna blow the fuck up. You put the rocket on his back in a year, maybe even less.
If he was born in a different time period, he'd be a paper boy.
Yeah, and just to go to the chat, James said that this match told a beautiful story, which it did, and that this will probably define Garcia for years. And I have to agree with that. And he did say one other thing that I thought was worth mentioning, and Danny, you agreed in the chat. Brian does feel a bit separate from the BCC. No Regal on commentary for this match, which he had been previously, even though Jericho was there. He's not really dealing with the whole Mox Punk stuff. And obviously he had a match before Mox came back out and there was a second pull apart, but he hasn't, I know he just got back, but he hasn't felt connected to them since he's been back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's by design because they wanted to, they could have easily fixed that with a promo where he's just like, I need to make sure I'm okay on my own first before, there's an easy way to write that off. But, now that he's basically recruiting Garcia, I think he'll slowly come back into it. But you also don't want to have Punk and Brian interact where it's not them being the focal point. Like, if Brian is there, I care so much less about Moxley and Punk because I just want Brian and Punk. And, like, I'm sorry, I don't want to be an Eric about this, but that's like, I think wrestling will be complete when we get that match, and we could just, pack it in and call it a day because
that's the end of wrestling. It's over after that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's been it's literally been 10 years since their last match, I believe.
Oh shit, yeah, 2012.
Yeah, summer 2012 was last time they had a singles match. You know what? That match was amazing by 2012 standards, but by 2022 AEW standards, I can't even imagine. I genuinely can't even imagine what that would
It's
be
going to
like.
be
So
orgasmic,
you gotta
literally.
keep them. You gotta keep them separate as much as you can. So especially when it's almost like this is this feud between Punk and Moxley is happenstance because of circumstances out of their control. So you don't want their interaction to be because of a last minute change of direction. So I'm okay with it for now, and he needs to bleed back into him as soon as this is done with between Punk and Mox.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think if he does end up pulling Garcia into the fold, it'll help transition him back into being more present with the BCC. Let's move on here. We had a quick swerve in our Glory and Private Party backstage interview because they have a tag title match on Rampage on Friday, which should be cool. After that, we had the aforementioned Moxley and Punk Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. And then we had a backstage interview with Jericho and the Jericho Appreciation Society about what happened in the post-match. Jericho says he'll give Garcia a pass after that match because it was so good and he probably got his bell rung. And then he'll talk to Garcia live on Dynamite next week to see whose side he's on. Then Ricky Steamboat comes over and he says Jericho's still the same guy he was 15 years ago and that Danielson would be the better mentor to Garcia. Jericho tells Steamboat to fuck off, basically, and walks away. And Luke Bernard steps in front of Ricky as Ricky tries to follow him. And while he's talking shit to him, grab Ricky's neck, to which Ricky responds by punching him in the chest and knocking him over. So looks like Ricky still got it. After this, we probably had what was Danny's favorite segment, which was the Gun Club against the Varsity Blondes. And not because the Gun Club squashed the Blondes in about a minute, which I feel really bad for the Blondes, but that's just me. Wow. Afterwards, because I like them from BTE and Sammy's vlog and stuff. Anyway, afterwards, Billy tells his boys how proud he is of them, but then Stokely appears on the stage, and Colton and Austin jump Billy, which, holy shit, they jumped their dad. Lucky bastards. Anyway, the Acclaim come out for the stage and scissor me daddy ass. They're back together. So this wasn't a long segment, but damn it, Danny, I love this.
Oh man, it really turned around at the end. It really turned around at the end because I was all prepared to complain, like, why are the losers of the feud the ones on TV and the Acclaim not? But thank God they were on TV this week. But man, they milked. Bowens did such a great job of milking the scissor and then the scissor me daddy ass line. He really held off like the perfect amount of time on it. It was A+ stuff. But yeah, it was good. I mean, that was good. Everything else about this was fucking garbage. Like the camera work was atrocious during this. They had the weirdest close up on Billy Gunn as he was getting jumped. Like it was just so obvious. You show us that he's about to get jumped before he does. We see it first, dramatic irony, and then you jump him, and it's so easy. All you gotta to use WWE, but to use an AEW guy, the List of Jericho, the Festival of Friendship segment. Why is my name on this? That was a perfectly shot heel turn. As bad as WWE's camera work is, they nailed that. So that's all you had to do here, and that's so simple. But they had this close up. Also, I just don't get Stokely. I believe you guys when you say he's good, but like, what is the point of him? Like, so now he's going downhill. He started up top with Jade. Now he's just collecting jobbers and shit. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
I am 200% on your side. I'm sorry, Rev. You were supposed to pan it to me. No, I know, but I had to cut in. Stokely is fucking trash. I don't care what James says. I don't care about his NXT career. Nothing. He is garbage. He is trash in AEW. He needs to get the call back from Triple H and go back. It's not working for me. It's not gonna work for me. He's collecting weak people. It doesn't look good. I'm not here for it. The segment was ass as well. I just like the Acclaimed, and I hope they become the tag team champions. Other than that, whatever.
Guarantee he recruits a wingman next. Guarantee.
He's trash.
Chad, didn't you like him though in NXT?
I love him in NXT. That's the point.
Right,
that's why I'm so fucking upset, because he is garbage here. He hasn't done anything worth me saying, oh, I can't wait to see what this guy does, or any storyline at all where I think that he's going to make it better. It's just, he has to go back to Diamond Mine. It's not working.
You can only see how this plays out for so long before it's like, oh, okay, it's just...
I don't even...
I mean, Tony Khan's high on him. I mean, he really likes him, so...
I mean, he should
Tony
be high on
Khan
him.
has weird opinions, all right? Like, he's obsessed with that Brock Lesnar lookalike dude. Like, you know, he's...
Oh, Harlan.
For every 2.0, you know, that Tony Khan's hot on, it turns out to be right on, he's going to have the Andrades and people like that in the world, you know, like...
Stokely's got to change it.
We spent way too much time on this.
Yeah, I also assume I missed the segment where Jade fired Stokely. I guess that happens at some point.
I have no idea.
Me neither. If it did,
know.
it must have happened on Rampage, because despite missing a couple weeks, I did catch up on Dynamite. I never saw it. So
every time we see the guy, he's being a snake and whispering and recruiting people. I don't know. I'm over it. He's whatever. I'm
gonna give him a chance to see what they end up doing with him, especially if he's away from Jade now, because I just don't think that worked. But we'll see. I'll give him a shot, and if in a month or two he's still not really doing much besides just talking and not accomplishing anything, then I'll join your crusade here, Chad. But
trash.
We'll see. I'll give him a shot. After this, we had Sanjay Dutt, Satnam Singh, and Jay Lethal promo package. Jay challenged Wardlow and FTR to a match at All Out. Sanjay was actually really good in this. He was really, really pissed. He yelled about losing his pencil. It was my favorite promo of his in AEW to date. Then we came back from commercial to a backstage promo from Pac and the Lucha Brothers, just talking shit to Will Ospreay and Aussie Open in advance of their Trios Tournament tag match next week. Then we have our Jungle Boy promo, which was fine. Luchasaurus was suspended last week after he headbutted Pat Buck, so he wasn't there. As we mentioned earlier, fuck everybody in this crowd trying to do the what chant with Jungle Boy. We know he's not the best speaker, but he's a lot better than he was. And yes, he was doing the token WWE pauses, between every sentence fragment. But he was fine, and he was articulate, and he was getting the point across, and I was liking what he was saying. Yeah, he could be better, but I thought he was fine. And I felt like they threw him off a bit. He did pause and let it die, which I thought was smart. So he's getting better.
I think.
Oh, go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, before you skip over, because I agree with you. I think it was fine. The only thing that threw me off was that the mic was over here, and then he was mumbling into it, and then he talked, and then go back to mumbling. Other than that, whatever. I mean, he's 20 years old. Cut him some slack.
Yeah, I double checked. Garcia's 23, and I don't think Jungle Boy is older than him.
Wow.
So Jungle Boy is 22, 23 as well. So Jungle Boy eventually got around to his promo, basically saying he can either keep trying to attack Christian every week, or they can have a match at All Out. Christian comes out and just says no. And then he says that's because he wants to go on another run with Jungle Boy. They're still family. He still feels like that Jungle Boy is a son to him, and that he still loves Jungle Boy, and he asks him to come home. Jungle Boy thinks about it for 20 seconds and then proceeds to just beat the shit out of Christian. Christian eventually escapes long enough to get a low blow in and starts to turn the tide on Jungle Boy, but he's able to turn the tide back, throw Christian into the steps, and then he stomped Christian's elbow into the stairs, perhaps breaking it or something. At least that's how they were trying to sell it, and just continuously slammed Christian's head into the steps until security came and pulled him off.
What a heel.
Well, considering everything that Christian has said about Jungle Boy and everything Christian has done to Jungle Boy, turnabout is fair play.
He apologized.
Yeah, he apologized. Be the bigger man, Jungle Boy. And all Christian did was liberate Luchasaurus and give him an opportunity to shine and an opportunity to flourish. What is Jungle Boy's been back for 3 weeks, and who's suspended now? Luchasaurus. Christian got him on TV. Jungle Boy got him off TV. Christian's the good guy. Move on.
Preach, brother.
You know what? I might just move on because I'm not going to be able to win this argument. I know I'm not going to be able to win this argument, even though Jungle Boy's clearly the face.
If you had James here, you might have had a shot.
But I don't. So
no way. James would have been radicalized by our speeches.
I do agree. I agree a little bit with Luchasaurus. He was really cool with Christian. I still don't know what the point of that was. And like I said last week, even if they bring it back around and he's still on Christian's side, I still think it's really stupid.
Agreed.
All right. Next, we had Wardlow and FTR backstage. They accepted the challenge for the trios match at All Out. And Cash made reference to the Pinnacle and said nobody messes with them, which is pretty cool. They actually said that. And it also makes me think MJF could be coming back, but probably not a tease to that, but still interesting. Wardlow says anybody can get powerbombed, even the big guy. And then I think Dax challenged Lethal to a match either next week or Friday. I don't know. My TBS gave me the spinning pinwheel of death, so I had to reset it there for a second.
I think it's next week.
I think it's Dynamite.
All right, so yes, it'll be next week. That should be a good match, man. Dax singles matches have been awesome lately, and obviously Lethal's really good. So
it is going to be a great match, and it's going to be fantastic for Dax to finally win a singles match.
Right,
it's going to be good.
Yeah, he deserves it, and a high-profile one at that.
But no, it's not. It's not
a fair.
This is not
upper mid-tier profile.
It's upper. Yeah, it's upper mid profile.
Okay, like this is like a fair criticism of AEW. These guys need to be off TV, like real quick. Like there's so many better people that could be on TV, and that again pains me to say because Jay Lethal was fantastic, but AEW Jay Lethal is just a different, worse guy.
And I think we say this every week. We need the Ring of Honor weekly show because the roster continues to be
convoluted.
Convoluted. I was just polluted by Ring of Honor guys, and it's a bit less. I think Jay Lethal is probably the biggest example of that happening. And if you want to make an argument, kind of Wheeler Yuta because he has it, and Claudio because they have Ring of Honor titles, but we like them, so we don't care as much. But once the Ring of Honor weekly show comes around, I think it'll be a lot less crowded on this show, and we'll have more opportunities for more AEW people than trying to squeeze in all these Ring of Honor roster guys and girls just to get them screen time. All right. So after this, we have our lone women's segment of the night. Toni Storm versus Kylan King. Nice to see Kling back. I only like Cody liked her, so I like her. Anyway, Thunder Rosa was watching backstage because Toni Storm's #1 contender. King actually had a really good showing. I thought she looked good, but Toni Storm obviously able to overcome, and she won with a really nice pendulum DDT. I do love that move. And they made Thunder Rosa versus Toni Storm official for All Out. So they're friends on TV. I kind of want to see Toni Storm win the title. Obviously, we'll get into that more as All Out gets closer. But yeah, and who knows? Maybe we'll finally get that Thunder Rosa heel turn we've been talking about for seemingly 8 months now. But who knows? And then the last thing that I had was a quick Trustbusters and Best Friends video package because they've got a match for the Trios tournament on Rampage, and also Sonny Kiss joined the Trustbusters. I didn't know that. Good for him. I'm glad he's being able to do something. So that was Dynamite. I thought there were a lot of really high highs in this Dynamite, Danny. I think obviously Kenny came back. The opening segment was unbelievable. We had a fantastic match, and it did tend to dominate the show, I thought. But I mean, if those are your top 3 segments and they take up 50% of the time, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I think it was. I think once again, Tony Khan maybe overhyped it, but only a little bit, because this was one of the best Dynamites of the year. It's hard for it not to be. You got the return of Kenny Omega. You have the perfect Punk Moxley segment, and then you have the Daniel versus Bryan match, and it's all enough where it doesn't matter what's on the rest of the show, as long as it's not detrimental to the rest of the show. Then you have a top tier show, because there's nothing that could drag it down that much for it to be anything but one of the best Dynamites of the year. But more importantly, the Mets did win 9-7. So.
Oh God, yeah, no. If you haven't been noticing me checking my phone the entire time, I've been panicking since the start of the show. I had to turn the game off with bases loaded in the top of the bottom of the seventh for Atlanta, and Max was coming out, and I was flipping out.
Yeah, but the Mets won. The good guys win. All is right in the world. The babyfaces won on Dynamite, and the babyfaces won in baseball, and everything is all good with the world. What did you think of the show, Chad?
Oh man, I give it an 8 out of 10. I think I'm with you. When you have CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Kenny Omega all on one show, and they're not all facing each other, and there's space in between, amazing. There's no way I could call it a bad show. Like you said, the segments hit, the matches that were supposed to hit. There wasn't much that could bring it down.
I'm curious to see the time splits on this, but there's only 4 matches on this card, which is really low, I feel like, for a typical Dynamite. Right. And granted, I think obviously that was because the Danielson Garcia match went so long, being a 2 out of 3 falls match. But even one of those matches was that like 60-second squash by the Gun Club. So I'm curious to see the splits between promo and video package time versus time wrestled, because I feel like this might be the lowest amount of time we've seen wrestling on a Dynamite.
Yeah, because this was a very segment heavy show, but yeah, I mean, when you're getting fucking mind-blowing masterpiece segments like this, then I don't think we care that much.
Yeah, it's not always a bad thing. It's
right.
We all love the good matches, and we all love the wrestling, but bro, this is giving us a reason to care. You know how invested I am in this fucking match next week? You know how invested I'm going to be in Christian freeing Luchasaurus by defeating the evil Jungle Boy? Like, you know how I'm not that excited for the Trios tournament yet. It depends on who wins in the rest of the brackets. But I
think, well, the matches will be good, whether or not you're excited for them.
You know how indifferent I am about Tony Storm facing Thunder Rosa again by accident, seemingly. But like it's a good thing having these promo segments instead of just all wrestling with a few backstage segments. Broke the show up, so the show flew by because of the show flew by.
It was really fast.
Agreed.
Yeah, sometimes good matches don't go by fast, but when those matches are broken up with great segments, the show it goes by so fast. It's just a great pace. It's fantastic.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think it was a good change of pace just from the typical Dynamite. And also, too, those 2 of those matches, and obviously the 2 lengthier ones, were, the aforementioned Bryan Danielson versus Daniel Garcia and the return of Kenny Omega. And those were 2 of the longer segments on the show. Those matches were really long. Like the Tony Storm and King match, it went long enough. Like it went through a commercial break, but it wasn't like crazy long. It was probably 8 minutes. I wasn't clocking it, but. And obviously you had the second 60-second squash match, but the other 2 matches were good 20 minutes, I think, for the Kenny one. And then the 2 out of 3 falls match had to be at least a half an hour. So we did get lengthy wrestling. It was weird to only have 4 matches on the Dynamite card. But like you guys said, I think everything was so good, it didn't really make a difference. It allowed all those 2 great matches to breathe a lot, and let the great segments with Punk and otherwise allowed them to breathe as well too. So I thought this was a very well put together Dynamite, even if it was a bit different from what we usually have. And quite frankly, after the last few weeks of, themed shows and them trying to squeeze as many good matches onto a card as possible, this was refreshing. So I thought it was very well done. Like Dan said, I'm super excited for next week. We have the unification bout. James threw MJF's name out there. I don't know if that's true. I haven't seen any reporting or anything of that, but if he's right, you can come watch him gloat here next week on the Markdown podcast. And I think on that note, I can now set up for next week. So thank you, everybody, so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. We are doing very well with our subscriber count. And let me scroll down and see. We're at 90-5. Holy shit. We are 5 away, people. 5 subscribers away from James dyeing his beard green and rapping for us. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to hear what he, cooks up in the lab. Be sure to check out all of our social media stuff. I'll get it in the description when I can. I forgot to do it during the episode today, so I will do that as soon as possible. Like I said, Chad's always on Twitter. Danny's got the Instagram. James got the Facebook. Danny's got the TikTok too. I got to start throwing that into the description. Oh, yeah. And also go check out some of our other videos. If you want to follow us on stuff now, you can go there. The links will be there, and you can check out our other videos as well. So on that note, for Danny Hernandez and Chad Big Band Johnson, my name is Nick Cummings. Thank you so much for watching. Check out the pod coming out later this week, and we will catch you here next time on the Market Down podcast. Have a good night, everybody, and thank God the Mets won.